Okay, you guys know the title for this panel. Basically immigration, migration, illegal immigration, whatever your term is. I feel like this panel should be the entire CPAC because it seems like immigration is the issue. By the way, it's not just the issue in Europe, it's the issue in America, it's the issue everywhere. Declan, take a minute and talk about what needs to be done now to stop this migration crisis in Europe.
We need to choose who gets to enter Europe and who doesn't. And we need to do it before they get here. In Ireland, in our case, we have found statistically that more than 90% of asylum applications are fraudulent. They fail. They call Ireland Treasure Island because obviously, if you're coming from a country that sees where asylum seekers originate from, Ireland is not going to be your first port of call. We see it with the boats coming across the channel. Now, if anybody with common sense thinks that you really cannot stop those boats crossing the channel, they don't understand physics and they don't understand how you make and implement laws. This can be stopped, and somebody proved that when there is a political will, it can be done. During the Biden administration, we all heard that the southern border of the United States could not be closed. It wasn't possible. Donald Trump's administration, maybe in the greatest triumph of his administration so far, closed that border. We have to do the same in Europe, because if we don't, we will not have a Europe worth living in for much longer.
So there's two parts of this that I see. Countries like Ireland, where you have rather hopeless governments, where people like yourself, Declan, want to change that dynamic so you can have the power to take these steps. Then we have Italy, which is led by a wonderful prime minister who has been wonderfully graced us with her presence at 2 CPACs in America, and she is really a leader in this, but now she has power. What is the power that you have in Italy to do the types of things Declan's talking about?
Thank you, Matt. Good morning, everybody. We are working on two different levels. The first one is the national level. When we got in power, when we came to the power, we changed our national laws. We changed the paradigm of the migration management, for sure. No more open borders ideology, but control of stop of illegal migration, fight against the smugglers, fight against ideological and political NGOs that are helping the smugglers within the Mediterranean seas to exchange these people from the boats of the smugglers to the boats of the NGOs to bring them to our shores, and many other things at the national level. But we realized that it was not sufficient for two reasons. The first one was the court appeal power from these people or the organizations supporting these people, and the court, in many cases, they recognized asylum titles to these people or blocked repatriation procedures, return procedures, and so on. This is a political problem because we have ideological judges from the left that are in favor of this open border ideology. And the second problem was the juridical framework of the European Union laws. And we worked a lot, and our Prime Minister reached very important success. One of these was very recent. We voted 2 weeks ago in the European Parliament, new return regulation. It is very different from the past. And this is a great success from the conservative side. For the first time, with a majority on the center-right, with the EPP that once in their life they voted with us in the right direction in order to have a more effective return policies, a common and joint return order. So once that you are found as illegal in one of the 27 European countries, this order of repatriation is valid also in the other 28 seeks. So if the police catch you in another country, they can repatriate you directly.
Okay, so
and the important thing, just the last thing is that, then this can be decisive for doing what Declan said, is the possibility to open the return hubs in third countries outside EU, as we did, for example, in Albania. This means that the boats that are coming, that can be diverted to these countries, and there the asylum procedures can be done instead of one of our 27 member states. So the people can't enter anymore in Europe, and we decide if they can enter or not outside the EU borders. And this is fundamental in order to fight the smugglers, to stop the traffic, and to decide who is entitled to come in and who is not entitled to come in. This can be decisive. So this is a chance that is new, and this is due to our common work and our effort led by Giorgia Meloni in the European Council.
Carlo, you're a member you're an MEP. Georgiana, you are too, from Romania. What was the vote on this measure? I mean, I'm not giving you a pop quiz, but like, did it pass overwhelmingly or was it a close vote?
It was quite a close vote, unfortunately.
Why did the EU, everything I read is the EU never does the right thing. Why did they finally do the right thing on this?
I'm going to tell you something. I'm a rapporteur in a file concerning the Schengen regulation. And whenever we meet with the other rapporteurs to discuss on the provisions and amendments on strengthening the border controls of the Schengen areas, there are colleagues, MEPs, especially from the left side of the parliament, who keep on debating and saying that Europe was built due to migration. We have to open borders, receive everybody, stop all the controls, stop enforcing the police, the Europol, the Frontex, because the idea itself of strengthening Europol and Frontex is a disgrace for them, because it means we do not believe that everybody is honest and innocent, so we step on the presumption of innocence. This is what they tell us on every meeting we have. And I have to ask you something, and now I'm talking to the audience. Have you ever received a stranger, a complete stranger, to live with you in your home, with your family? Anybody? Okay, so I'm not the only bad Christian here. Okay, if you invite a guest, if you invite maybe a relative, a friend, and he moves in with you, and after a couple of days he starts destroying your furniture or harassing your children, are you entitled or not to kick him out of your home? Is this a hate speech? Is this extremism to tell somebody who comes to live with you that they have to comply with your rules and with the rules of your house? So what's the difference between analyzing your own house, 100 square meters maybe or less, or your country, or Europe, or the free world? We are we were built, the European Union, UK, United States, we were built on very important principles like democracy, like the respect for dignity, for human rights. How are we still respecting dignity when we are supposed to tell our citizens who voted for us that if a 9-year-old girl is raped on the streets, that is okay and fair, because we are talking about traditions and we have to respect other people's traditions. And we are the ones who are considered extremists. We are the ones delivering hate speech here and in the parliaments and in the European parliaments only because we have the strength and the courage to say that we must prioritize the safety of our own citizens.
Okay, but let me go back to the question, because I really don't get it. Why did the forces that want immigration control
because they
succeed?
vote. The newcomers will get soon the right to vote, like they do in Spain now. The Sanchez government allowed 1 million people to receive the residence right. This means 1 million citizens that will start voting on the local elections tomorrow. And in a couple of years, they will receive also the citizenship, and they will vote also for the parliamentary and presidential elections.
This has spooked members of the European Parliament to start taking immigration seriously?
Yes.
Okay, well, that's good. Okay, so I just came back from a couple days of holiday in Paris with my wife and 4 of my daughters. They're going to be joining us here at CPAC in the next hour or so. Can I give you my really bad novice view of French politics?
You may.
nothing will change until you actually win a nationwide election and get a president. Is that right?
Bonjour.
That's my only French word, too. I do know that word.
I'll teach you a couple of others which can be very helpful. Before I answer a question, I would like to emphasize what's at stake. The question of immigration is not a question of good or bad. It's a question of national sovereignty. And it has to be dealt with a cold head and with common sense. There are 3 government indicators that we have to look at in order to decide what our policies should be. The first one is the immigration politics in Europe good or bad regarding our social finances? The answer is very bad. We have estimations in France that it costs several dozen billions euros a year. Second issue is in terms of security. Do we have a link between security, insecurity, crime, and immigration? The answer is yes, and it's an objective answer because all our official figures from the French Homeland Security shows that when it comes to physical crime, the people from overseas in the south, Northern Africa or Central Africa, Sahel, is overrepresented in proportions of 1 to 3 to 1 to 12, especially for sexual assaults. And the third question is it a good or a bad thing regarding our cultural environment? And of course, since the immigration of the last 30 years is mostly an Islamist immigration, it's a huge issue because how crazy were we to think that people who would come from a completely different culture would just melt into ours. It just doesn't exist. It never existed. The example of Lebanon, the example of former Yugoslavia, even the example of Algeria in its civil war in the 90s shows us that when you have a big minority of people of Islam religion, no matter how good faith they are, some of them become Islamist.
Thibault,
so
I'm not
this
being
is the
rude,
terms. This is the terms of the speech we have to.
You make a
today.
point. This is controversial because people look at it and say, in America, they go right to the shortened version. They say, well, most of these people are dark-skinned, most of these people are Muslim, whatever they do, and they say, therefore, it equates to hatred, racism, blah, blah, blah. Declan, does the data in Ireland show the same relationship to crime with this immigration crisis that we have?
The statistics in Ireland are deliberately obscured to hide it, which tells us everything that we need to know. This week, after yet another abhorrent attack in Ireland, the murder of a young woman by an asylum seeker who, after he murdered the woman, made his way to Dublin airport and flew back to the Middle East, went to Turkey and is now probably in Syria or Jordan. This quote-unquote Jordanian refugee murdered a young woman in her house in Ireland and fled. He had lived in accommodation provided by the Irish taxpayer, and this is just last week. And yet the Irish government are out lecturing us on misogyny and male violence against women, as if that's the problem and the only cause of the problem. It is cultural. Of course it's cultural. It shouldn't be controversial to say that Europe is founded on a Christian foundation. That's just true. It's common sense. It's not a lie. It should not be controversial anywhere. That if you bring in large numbers of radicalized Islamic immigrants who don't respect your culture, who don't believe in the things that you believe in, that there is going to be a cultural clash and that there's going to end up being blood, which is what we are seeing happening. And ordinary people can see this, and when they are seeing it not being addressed, they get very frustrated.
Or they're being lied to. Same in Italy with the crime statistics?
Yes, there is one data that is very clear because It's true that the data are a bit obscured, and so, now you have these second and third generation young migrants. So some of them now they are nationals because they are no more foreigners. So
this is a big thing, right?
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt, but for example, there was a guy convicted in Scotland the other day, and the headline was, Irishman convicted of raping, I think, a 12-year-old in Scotland.
Exactly,
Irishman.
Exactly. So this is another.
Where was he
issue.
from?
His name wasn't O'Malley, let's just say that.
Yeah.
So he's Scottish or Italian, but he is not.
But he's an Irish passport.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But there is a data that is very clear. That is about the population in the national prisons. We have more than 30, maybe between 30 and 40% of our prison population that is from foreign countries. And we have an official percentage of foreigners in our society that is 9% of regular migrants. You can count more or less, plus 2% of irregular migrants, more or less, yes. So it's completely disproportionate, the proportion with the crimes committed by the foreigners, and most of them are from Maghreb or from Central Africa, and there are countries that are more affected from this kind of problem. There are typical crimes for typical different national origin, we can say. For example, the traffic of drug is specific for the Central African migrants. Other kind of crimes are for other ethnicities, we can say. So it's very clear, and I think it's clear also for the common people, and it's clear for the data and for the authorities. So now the problem is that we need to empty our prisons from these
Send them
people.
back.
Yeah, in order to send them back, in order to
It doesn't do you any good to
have
send
their
them back.
penalties. Their penalties in their country of origin, but this needs agreements with these countries.
Right, because if you send them back and they can just come back again, that doesn't accomplish
no, they shouldn't.
anything
They shouldn't. But the problem is that in many cases we don't have agreements. So the problem is that we had bilateral agreements. For example, Italy has bilateral agreements with other countries. Now we need European agreements, because this is needed right now in order to enforce our power towards the.
We have to stop the free
third
stuff.
countries.
Free, you can't have free stuff.
So let me quote. You're from a think tank, Thibault. You'll tell me which economist said this, whether it's, I think it was Milton Friedman or Hayek. You might want open borders, but you can't have them with the welfare state. If you have free immigration and people can choose the country that has the more free bennies, you will be bankrupt.
You know that France.
Well, you didn't correct me on The Economist.
No, I didn't. Actually, I didn't. But France is welcoming, in a way, 1/4 of the people who come in Europe. Why? Because we have the more incentive social state. So we have to.
It's like a magnet. It
Yes,
attracts people that want free.
Of course. So we have to do two things. The first one is to turn off the knob. That's the absolute emergency. And then we have to deal with the stock. And there are two issues that are not very often talked about that we should put on. The first one is we have to make the reach of a nationality, to be granted the nationality of a European country, much, much, much tougher than it is now, especially in France. And second of all, we have to put in the law that people who don't behave nicely and commit crimes and and big offenses can have their nationality withdrawn when it's in the 10 or 15
denationalized.
Denationalized.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
This is a very efficient way to do things, but of course we need, and that's a problem in France, I know it's the same in Italy, to have judges who would actually use those tools in justice. And if I may
We should have a whole other panel on judges
yes.
and how they're the biggest threat to all of
And
us.
one sentence about what was said here and there about the crimes committed by foreigners with different culture. Now in French courts, you can hear lawyers using the fact that the criminal is from another culture as an excuse, especially in sexual offenses. Oh, my lord, I'm sorry. This guy didn't know that in France, so you don't behave like that with women. And the most crazy is that some judge follow that defense line.
So this idea that you can't covet your neighbor's goods or covet your neighbor's wife sounds actually pretty good in the modern context if people would follow these ideas. Georgiana, you can't really participate in this conversation.
Why?
Because Romania hasn't adopted this craziness, right? You have borders, you have more of a law-based immigration process. Can these countries go back to what's going on in Romania? Is it too late?
No, it's not too late.
Or is Romania slipping and getting worse?
It might, because, 2.5 years ago, the European Parliament adopted the Pact for Migration and Asylum. And starting this July, the total quota of migrants in Europe, of illegal migrants, should be divided among the European member states, meaning that Romania should also get its fair share of migrants, unless it's willing to pay in order not to receive them, just like President Nawrocki from Poland declared that Poland will not receive any migrant coming from the Pact of Migration and Asylum. Indeed, Romania does not have such a big problem on illegal migration, especially because we don't give social incentives. In Romania, migrants who come have to work in order to live. For example, in Belgium, if you are an illegal migrant and you come, you receive a free house and you get social incentives for every child you have, meaning that you don't feel encouraged to work or to study, because in the end you make more money than another citizen who goes to job every day and who pays taxes and tries to live in a fair way towards the society. So yes, we don't give social rights. But I wanted to ask something to one of the colleagues said,
you want to be the moderator now? It's all yours.
No,
Go.
no.
Go.
Sorry,
You got it.
just one thing. We had a very big study we made with the ECR group on the no-go zones at European level. And I have to tell you something. There are around 800 no-go zones in Europe, meaning neighborhoods or areas where people do not dare to enter, not even police does not dare to enter. And I have to tell you something, not even one of these no-go zones is a Christian one. And are we still sovereign when we accept to apply other laws in our country than our national laws? Meaning, if we accept Sharia law, are we still sovereign? I'm only asking.
The great author Oriana Fallaci, she died maybe 10, 15 years ago now. She said something very profound with regard to Europe. She said, the future belongs to those who show up for it. We have a demographic implosion going on in Europe right now. So this is deeply cultural for us too, because all of us here, if we live to a ripe old age, are going to need somebody to take care of us. We need people to take care of our parents and everything like that. And the way the so-called welfare state in Europe, the way that the Europe of high energy prices, of low innovation, of crippling taxes, of anti-family policies, the way it is orientated against the family, the way that Europe has become chronically risk-averse, where nobody wants to take a risk, you end up with the worst outcomes where you have to have somebody to come and take care of you and clean you up if you make it to 90 years old. And this is my Irish and European passport. This is not a right. It is a privilege.
Of course.
You pay your taxes, you work for years, it should be at least 15 years of working and paying taxes as a country and being part of society and being integrated before you get to enjoy this privilege. And that should be the case in every country in Europe.
And Declan, how many kids do you have?
I have 4 kids.
Thibault?
Case of what?
How many kids do you have?
Oh, 5.
I don't want to put you two on the spot. 2?
Only 1 so far.
Okay, so I have 5. This is not a contest, but it is math. Is part of this, we're talking about a lot about enforcement and borders and walls. We're almost done with our wall in America, by the way, almost done.
Big, beautiful wall.
Big, beautiful
Gonna be
wall.
So beautiful.
That-
Very big. Nobody's getting across it.
Declan's risking an international crisis right now.
International incident right here. Hey, but the big, beautiful wall, it works.
The
We
wall,
have beautiful
Thibault,
walls
Thibault,
in Europe
just
and the
working.
Baltic.
just one sentence. The wall is not the issue. The issue is the political strength.
That's correct.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
but the
It's also an issue because we can't put a wall in the Mediterranean, unfortunately. So we would need
the Baltics
a big,
are
beautiful
building
You can
wall,
put a
walls.
navy
so
in the
we
Mediterranean.
need some different
You can put.
solution.
We have
Drones.
Navy. We have naval capability. The technology exists. I do this. I'm building the global outer net. You'll know. You'll be able to communicate securely with any point of the planet to anywhere else. It's not about technology. To your point, it's about political will. That's what it's about.
in my,
And the Australian, we have the Australian example. The Australian policy, maybe you can remember it. Some years ago, they made advertisings on TV, and it was a message sent to people in Indonesia saying, don't come, don't go to Australia because you won't make it. We will have, and we have a pushback policy. It means that the Australian ships, they reach the migrant ship, they give water and milk for the children, so they take care of the people, but then they bring the ship back from where they go. It's just a matter of political strength.
So you said pragmatism to begin the conversation. Am I right that the other side of this equation is, yes, we have to have enforcement. Declan, you're CEO of Rivada, which is what you were talking about. We have to use technology to protect our countries, but we also have to kind of engender in our children and in our grandchildren that they should love their history, they should love their country, the good and the bad, try to repair the bad, you know, and hold on to what's good. But this idea of we're all, I assume, would consider ourselves conservatives. Doesn't it all come down to the family structure and encouraging that and fostering that in all of our countries? Didn't we lose that along the way? Didn't we stop talking about the importance
the state right across Europe has tried to entirely displace the family by promising it can take care of you from cradle to grave. Now it's telling you, well, maybe not the grave by the time you get there, we'll off you before you actually get too expensive on the state. And the culture of life and family is replaced by the culture of death and the big state. And that creates chronic risk aversion. It creates an demographic implosion. It creates the falsity and lie of net zero, which is the greatest policy mistake that Europe has ever implemented in 2,000 years. And this is the price that we pay. The family pays the most.
Also the fact that the families are left alone when all the other institutions of the society have just given up. The family is alone. So when you can say whatever you want to your children, maybe not in our families because it's easier, but in average families, once the children step out from the house, they go to school, they go to sport, they go with their friends, and they meet with another completely different speech. So this is a matter of of teaching in schools. This is a cultural matter. As I say, if you want to love France, first you have to know what France is. Nobody teaches you anymore about French history, what our roots are, and it's the same everywhere in Europe. We have to make our children proud of our flag, of our elders who fought for it, and to know our history, to know that we are Christians. But most of them, they just don't know it.
Let me applaud all of your countries. Well, not yours recently. You ripped down some statues that needed to be ripped down. But when we visit your countries, your history is on display in your beautiful art and in your statues, whereas in America, we've adopted in too many places this Maoist idea that you erase the parts of history you don't want, always determined by these leftist Marxists. But Europe seems to understand this concept of history. America doesn't. America wants to erase parts of her history, I guess, that some people don't like.
Europe wants year zero as well. A certain element in Europe. A certain element in Europe, the left in Europe want European values to mean that a woman can be a man, and that's what European values mean. We all know that's a lie. We know it's biologically and scientifically bullshit. But yet, this concept of European values has been hijacked by the left. These are not European values. The European values are represented in groups in the European Parliament like the ECR. That's the true crucible of European values. It is not what the left are telling us are European values.
Well, how can
they
we,
are alien to us.
How can we defeat...
That's why they don't care about radical Islam. The radical Islamicists are their allies in destroying the Europe that is worth preserving.
Point. How can you defeat radical Islamists,
For example,
as mostly Christians, if we spend all of our time having an internal fight about whether France is a worthy country or not, or whether American values are worth fighting for? We spend all of our time fighting that, and in the meantime, they know exactly what they're doing.
for example, by making religion mandatory again in the school curricula. Because
Have you done that in Romania?
No, it's not mandatory yet in Romania. It used to be in the past. Now children can choose whether they want to study religion or not, which is a mistake in my
What percentage of your
opinion.
population is Christian?
80-90%.
And mostly Orthodox?
Orthodox mostly, yes. But also, we also have Catholics, we also have Protestants, but around 90%.
I don't want to hog this,
Christian.
but I just want to give you a very exact example of what you're talking about, of the healing that can happen in Europe. My mother's family, about half of the West Mayo Brigade of the old IRA in the 1920s was made up of members of my mother's family. And sitting right there is Ian Paisley Jr., whose father was Ian Paisley Sr., a great unionist political family from Northern Ireland. Ian Paisley Jr. and I would agree on 98% of things with regard to family, values, Christian values, and Europe. Isn't that right, Ian? We are united. There is a divide, a war that existed between two different cultures on the island of Ireland where we can come together in the way that you're talking about and expunge the ills, the conflicts of the past on shared common goals, which is defending family values, defending freedom of religion, defending freedom of speech, freedom of thought, and the freedom to take risk and fail or succeed.
Yes, but it's very difficult because in European countries, and especially in France, when you stand up for that, you feel very alone. I've been living for 9 years with police protections. I've never set foot in a French street for the last 9 years alone. I have always from 2 to 6 cops with me. I have a fatwa from Pakistan. So when I was identified 15 years ago as someone who understood what the Islamic project was, and I started to speak about it in the French medias, I had a lot of problems. So people knew I had problems. So they all tell me, oh, Thibault, you are very brave. Keep going. And I said, but if we are 10,000 like me, it's not an issue anymore. I don't need policemen anymore because 10,000 people will go like me. But the fact is that, you know, they said, oh, you're very brave, but no, let's not meet in a public restaurant because just, you know, one never knows. So they just stand up. And our ancestors, they just stepped out of the trenches to fight. So now, intellectuals or lawyers like me, people like, some of them step out of the trenches, but when we turn behind us, we're alone. So we have to stop being alone when we go out of the trench.
Well, I want to get Carlo involved. I just want to say one thing. From an American context, we love the fact that President Trump is bringing up all of our heroes from, no offense to our wonderful kin in England, but the American Revolution. And it's said by historians that something like 8% of the colonists were willing to do what it took for their independence. And what you're saying, Thibault, is that one of the jobs of CPAC is to give people of influence and people who are just common people the courage to take that next step forward. And you've done that in Italy. I mean, you've been successful. You've elected a dynamic prime minister.
Yeah.
You're winning these arguments.
Yeah, I would like to raise one point that is from our experience about family policies. Because we, in the last 4 years of our government, we invested a lot in order to change the mind and change the amount of the investments on these policies that were completely failed in our country before us. And our experience after 4 years of investments on this is that, unfortunately, money is not enough. It's not enough. It's a cultural matter because now putting more money on these, doubling the subsidies and giving more possibilities for the women who works and that have more conciliation policies and many of these important measures, then the situation is that the birth rate is exactly the same of 4 years ago. And most of these subsidies are going to foreigners because they are more used to have sons more than us, the regular ones. So the problem is that we have to invest more and more on this for sure because it's in our mind, it's our cultural approach, but we have to be more effective in our cultural war in order to push more and more for family values, for family policies, because it's not sufficient to put more money. And this is a challenge for the conservatives, because otherwise you can say, okay, let's stop it. If it doesn't function, let's stop it. Let's stop to support family policies, and we don't want to do it. We want to go on supporting family policies, but we have to win the cultural challenge towards our people, and it's not so easy. It's a big challenge for conservatives, supporting demography without losing our people.
All right, so the clock is dominating things, but I'm going to take my prerogative. I want to close with one very quick answer, okay? Declan, we've described what's happening with this emergency on migration. In the next 5 years, will Ireland have a conservative government to stop it?
Yes.
France, will we win? Will you win next year?
Difficult to say, but one word. The thing that we are facing in France is that the far left is gathering with Islamists, and it's a very, very worrying thing because minority make history, and they are getting ready, and they say it in their speech, they are getting ready either to win in the polls or for insurrection. So the 2027 presidential election is a crucial one.
Everything. In Italy, are the forces of conservatism getting stronger? Or now that they have power, are they waning?
The others.
They're getting stronger.
Yeah, we hope so, and I think we are getting very good results. For example, about migration, we are cutting the arrivals of illegal migrants by more than 60%, doubling the returns. So we are getting more and more outcomes on this. But now with this new EU regulatory framework, we can do more and more. And this is very important for Europe because we are the southern border of Europe. So once that we are in the conditions to better manage the migration from the Mediterranean, this is something safeguarding all the continent.
I think the question for Romania is, will Romania be Romania, or will Romania have to, over time, listen more to Brussels to become more like these Western European countries?
No, Romania will stick to remaining and to continue being Romania. And the AUR party with George Simeon will win the next elections in Romania. We are now at over 43% in the polls in Romania. So we will walk on the same path like Giorgia Meloni, like Law and Justice from Poland with President Nawrocki. That is the conservative way, and it's the best way for every European country.
Thank you all very much. This is the theme of each of your countries and really the theme of the world, and we've got a big job to fix it. Thank you.
Merci.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Merci.